before I introduce you, I wanted to let you know that this morning we had a brief discussion with the students about some things that they want to hear regarding anti-bullying and just things that they can do in their own schools. So I'm going to leave the questioning up to them, but we have sort of opened it up and we had a lot of great ideas floating around. Students, as we go through this, we will have you, if you have a question, which the whole hour is yours, so we want you to be running this. What we do is we form two lines, one here and one here, and you can come forward. And students, we will need you to use your nicest speaker voices because the microphones will be reserved for the panelists during this time. And one line at a time, we'll ask questions. So if you already know you have a question, you can start lining up. One more thing before we start though, junior staff, there are a few items to pass out to ambassadors in the back. So if you will meet Katie in the green tank top around the back and get all the stuff for your group, then we can get that passed out as well. So I will introduce our panelists. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll have you introduce yourselves. Just a quick 20 or 30 seconds about who you are while you're here. And we will get started from there. Thank you very much. Woo!
Speak with you guys today about a different perspective on the issue of bullying in a film that was just released in theaters called A Girl Like Her. And I'm here to talk about that and to answer any questions that you might have about how you can work with people who come across as abusers in life.
My name is Jim Tuman. Been a national youth speaker for 37 years and spoken in 2,000 schools and 2 million kids all over the world.
Hi, my name is Mary Drew. I work for the Attorney General. Okay, sure, thanks. Yes, and one of the programs I manage, I'm an administrator there, and one of the programs I manage is called OK to Say. And OK to Say is a confidential way for students to be able to report anything that threatens their safety or the safety of others. So I want to talk a little bit about the program and then ask for your feedback on how you think we can be most effective with your peers. So, thank you.
All right, how's everybody doing? My name is Kevin Szawala, or Mr. Peace. And I saw that movie and it was incredible. So I already got a Be Nice bracelet from my friend down there. I'm here because the guy sitting to over from Legion, Tuman, believed in me. And I'm also a youth speaker, national youth speaker now, hip-hop artist, spoken word poet, and a youth minister. So I'm just really honored to be here with you guys this morning to continue that.
So at this time, now that we know our panelists, it's up to you to run the whole next hour. We have a wealth of information and knowledge here to share with you. You just have to tap into it and ask the right questions. So I know we had at least 20 questions asked earlier today, so I know you have the questions. And at this time, we want to invite you all down to introduce yourselves to our panelists, pose a question, and then they will each, whoever it applies to, you can ask a question to one specific panelist, or you can ask a question to the whole group and just see what everyone's ideas and thoughts are about it. So if you would please come on down, don't be shy, and we'll get this going.
She needs a mic.
Have you ever been a victim of bullying, and if you have, would you draw the line and say this stops now?
I'll take that. Yes, I was a victim. I was very young, so I had no skills or knowledge at all. I was only 6 years old, and this was when I was in kindergarten. And there was a boy that I had a friendship with in school, and then when we go to his house after school, that's when the abuse started. And he would start by telling me what to do, being quite aggressive with me, and then he ended up hurting me. He ended up locking me into trundle beds, locking me in for over an hour. He wouldn't let me out. He was verbally abusive to me. Never really understood what was going on because I grew up with 2 loving sisters who were older than me that never, ever harmed me. So I was very confused what was happening. And then the first adult I told, which was his mother, I kind of just felt out how that was going to go. We were in the car, and I said to her that Billy, the day before, had locked me in the trundle bed, and so I wanted to just go home when we were on our way home from school. And she made every excuse, like the trundle bed probably was locked, and he didn't know it. He probably couldn't hear me. She used a lot of excuses, which created a very unsafe space for me to trust adults to tell anything to. So I stayed quiet. And then it escalated. One afternoon, my mom was driving around the block and asked me if I wanted to go home. A lot of people ask me today, well, why'd you stay? Why'd you stay? I didn't know what was happening. I was too young to process any of it. I just knew that we were friends, and I didn't know what friendship looked like, really. And so she asked me if I wanted to go home. He stood behind me and he said, say no, say no. So I said, no, I'll just come home in a little while. And as she was driving down the street, he grabbed the back of my neck. He said, you're lucky you said no. He threw me down face first into the cement. And my 4 front teeth were damaged and they turned gray. They healed, they were bruised, but there was a lot of damage from that. And no, I didn't draw the line because I didn't know how to draw the line. I was never taught. Even when my parents found out what was happening, because going home that afternoon with my injury, there was still just not a lot of talk about it because they didn't know what to do. Their defense was to keep me away from him. Well, I'm sure someone's going to ask a question later, but I in turn changed the way I was going to do things, and I became a bully. To be continued.
I don't know exactly how to word this, but when you guys are ever in a low, because sometimes not everything always works with different schools and stuff, and when you're feeling down or you feel like you're not making an impact or anything, what do you usually turn to? Or what do you think about to bring yourself back up from that?
First of all, before I address the question, one thing is for certain, and this is a very powerful weekend, and I've been keynoting here for, gosh, this is my 34th year, but you are living in unprecedented times. You know, never in the history since I've been speaking have we seen, you know, mass shootings in schools and beheadings on television and a threat for our own safety in this country. And so the more attuned you are and the more awareness you have, the better the chances are that you'll be able to be proactive as opposed to reactive in terms of this set of circumstances. As far as for me personally, you know, when I went through school, I was a product of 3 suicide attempts as a high achiever kid, and I was very alone. I was very much isolated, and because of that, what happened for me was that in that aloneness, I used to go home at night and wonder, you know, why was this emptiness there? What was it? Because essentially I was surrounded by friends and people in school, but the reality for me was that it wasn't safe for me. It wasn't safe for me to be myself. And having been, you know, having been with Hobie for a very long time, many of you out there who are high achievers, you struggle with this. You know, who takes care of the caretaker in the bigger picture? And so for many of you, there's this sense of aloneness, and many of you fill it with being busy and being, you know, having a number of things in school that you chair or you're part of, or you champion, or whatever it is. But that's running away and that's band-aiding. My best suggestion is, what do? You find people around you that you feel safe with. And safe means that you can be 100% yourself. And no matter how badly you screw up, that there will be these people that will always have your back, and will always care about you, and will always support you. And in that is an incredible gift that they are giving you in your life.
As a creative person, I see a lot of darkness, and a lot of times I don't believe that the vision I have in my head will actually come to fruition. And there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, just like in every day, even when I was your age, and trying to create, and especially make an impact in some way and make a contribution in some way. But there's so many pieces to the puzzle that it can become very overwhelming. And I suggest that if you don't know how to breathe, you first learn how to breathe. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. Close your eyes. Very first thing you do is when that rush of energy comes in and you feel small and you feel like it's not possible, and somebody has said something or somebody has done something, that now you're questioning everything about yourself in this moment, and you all have been here. There is a way to get out of it very quickly, and that is through your breath. We don't really know how to breathe. We just don't think about it. So as you close your eyes and you imagine that rush of adrenaline that goes through, and it's normally negative, it's normally something that's filled with gloom. The first thing you do is put your hand right on your stomach, and you start to feel your breath. Expand your belly out by taking the breath in. Oddly enough, it goes out, unless you tighten your abs all the time like I do. So breathe, feel it expand, and then let it go through your nose. Next one, go a little deeper. Hold it for a sec, and then let it go. Again, take a deep breath in. Hold it a little bit longer, and let it go. Give yourself at least 10 of these. And I promise you, whatever you're feeling at that moment that you want to react to right at that second, after those 10 breaths, clarity will come. You won't feel as desperate as you do in that moment, and the darkness starts to dissipate a bit. Sports are wonderful, even if you go run for an hour around the block nonstop, or you jump. Find something right, play music. Find something that gives you that passion, that why you're alive. And remember that you're one person on the planet, making a difference, doing your best, and no matter what happens inside here, because this can get very dark at times, there's ways out of it. Never stop striving to find those ways. Start with your breath. I promise you it'll make a difference. For that, and it came from a 7-year-old little girl who was at a lunch with my daughters. Somebody made a joke, these were all amongst friends, and somebody made a joke about the other person, and everybody started to laugh. And this 7-year-old little girl said, wait, let's take a look at her. Is she laughing? Then it's not funny. At the expense of someone else, whenever it's at the expense of someone else, that's the good starting point to realize that's probably not in the best interest of your group or of your friendship.
Hi. Another thing to answer that question, I have a niece and she's 7 years old, but when she was 5, she came up to Michigan, she lives in North Carolina, and she came to visit, and we were all sitting at the dinner table, and my mom had said something about my outfit, and we were at dinner, so we were at Applebee's, and she said something about my outfit, and I was just like, okay, Mom, like, you could have like, at least told me that like, before we left, like, so I could have fixed it. And my niece goes, hold on, Nana, hold on. You shouldn't say something about someone if they can't change it within 10 seconds. If they can't change it within 10 seconds, you shouldn't be saying it at all. And I just broke down in tears in the middle of Applebee's. And ever since then, I have just lived up to those words. You can't change it if someone can't change something within 10 seconds, don't tell them. It's like, don't, if they have something on their face, if they can, that's something they can change within 10 seconds. Like, hey, you have some food on your face. Tell them, please tell them. But if they're wearing something that you don't like or something like that, and they can't change it within 10 seconds, or they can't go to the bathroom and fix their hair, or if you can fix their hair for them, or if they can't change their personality, or change how they talk, or change the way they pronounce words, don't say anything at all. They can't change it within 10 seconds. Don't say it.
Hi, my name is Camila Candul. I come from Detroit, Christopher High School. One question I just had, I asked it earlier, so I guess I'll just tell you. Considering all the media we have today, how do you recognize a bully? Whether your best friend is bullied, you don't know it, can your friends in your friend group, how to recognize social media bullies. That's just my question.
It's an interesting and very fascinating question, and here's a little key. Anytime somebody has to climb over someone else to make themselves better, that is a bully personified. And so anybody that you know that at the expense of other people seems to want to, rise above a little bit, that's someone that's a watch spot. And they keep growing, and they feed on, the misfortune to keep themselves climbing over each person. So that's something to really, truly watch for in the people around you.
One thing I always try to stress is to understand the difference between a friend and an acquaintance. A friend is somebody you can tell your secrets to, and they'll respect that. An acquaintance you can still do things with, you can go to the movies with, you can go shopping with, you can play sports with, but you just don't tell your secrets because they will not respect that, and they'll use it to harm you. So I always try to stress the difference between the two.
I wanted to ask, how do you not be an active bystander if you're watching bullying, and how do you not take it too far telling the bully to stop doing what they're doing, so you in turn don't become a bully yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I guess how to not become an active bystander is not easy. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of guts to be able to stand up for somebody or something that you believe in. I think it's something to know that you have just as much at fault, though, as the person that's doing the bullying. When you start to think of it from that perspective, that angle, that it's also your responsibility to stick up for somebody that's in need. That's a huge thing. There was a 6th grader that just was talking to me the other day, and he was in tears. He said back in 2nd grade, he saw this kid get bullied by this other 6th grader, right? And he could have told the teacher, he could have done something. It ends up the kid left the school district, and he met up with them a couple of years later, and he's had all these issues since then. And so he takes some responsibility for that, because he knows he could have told somebody, right? He could have tried to get help, he could have told the person to stop as well. And they might not stop, and that's something that happens, but it's one of these things that you have to at least try. We don't always have the outcome like I talked about before, but we do have the effort for women to make it. And that's risking judgment a lot of times, risking getting made fun of ourselves, but that's a beautiful thing to do. And it's also beyond necessary, like Jim's talking about, because we turn on the news every other day, and either that cup is just, you know, it's overflowing either onto ourselves or onto other people.
Can I ask just a couple of questions? Has anybody themselves been a bully, or excuse me, been a victim of peer abuse? If you have, can you raise your hand? Okay, put them down, thanks. Have any of you seen peer abuse or cyberbullying and felt uncomfortable? If you have, raise your hand. Okay, so majority of you. Have you ever been in a situation where you maybe wanted to do something, but you maybe didn't feel like you could because you were afraid that if you came forward that there could possibly be retaliation? You were afraid perhaps you might be the next victim, or perhaps you might fear that you would be labeled a snitch. If you have, can you raise your hand? We know this is the case. We have what we call a culture of silence, where kids are reluctant to come forward because they're afraid of those things, being labeled a snitch. So what our office did is we created a program called OK to Say. OK to Say is a confidential way for students to be able to report anything that threatens their safety or the safety of another. So if a person sees peer abuse going on, and they, in their house, the best thing you can possibly do is to stand up and speak up on behalf of that student. But sometimes they aren't always willing to do that. There is a way to help make a difference, and that's through OK to Say. So what you can do, and I gave you a form, is you can call, you can text, and I gave you a little business card, this black business card. If you flip it over, there are multiple ways for you to be able to do the right thing and be that hero in the hallway and to report something so that you can get that student or your peer or your friend the support, and nobody needs to know that, so you don't have to worry about that label of being a snitch or somebody retaliating against you. So what happens, the beauty about this program is that the information is going to go to a caring adult, and what we're going to do is we're going to contact the school, and we're also, depending upon the nature of the tip. So for example, if we had a situation where there's peer mistreatment occurring in the school, we're going to contact the school, and we're going to let them know, and we're going to ask them to take care of business. And you know what? The beauty of it is that they are. And I'll tell you how I know that is because with each of the reports that come into the office, one of the things that we ask is we ask for outcome reports. We know that if kids have the courage to come forward and do the right thing, they want to know that something happens with each and every tip. So what we do at the Attorney General's office is we contact that school and we say, what did you do? How did you help that kid? Because this program is not about getting kids in trouble. It's about getting kids the support they need. The other aspect, if we had a situation, let's say, where somebody was talking about bringing a weapon to school, well, we're going to contact the school immediately. We're going to contact our local law enforcement immediately, and we're going to ask them to intervene and help save lives. So this program is really about helping to make a difference. And I'm just going to take a minute, if I can, just to kind of talk about some of the tips that we got, because I think it's important for you to know that this program is out there working. We modeled it after a program in Colorado called Safety Tell. Safety Tell was actually the result of the Columbine issue. I'm sure most of you probably know what happened, but that was a situation where two young boys brought weapons and just did mass mass murder to some of their peers. The issue is that could have been prevented because there were a number of factors that went into a number of warning signs that had somebody come forward, maybe that tragedy could have been prevented. The U.S. Secret Service, as well as the U.S. Department of Education, did a study in which they looked at cases of violence in school. And when they went back and took a look at what was going on, what they determined is that in 81% of the situations where violence occurred, someone else knew but failed to report it. 81%. They knew what was going on. Kids are great at keeping secrets. You know who's had the bad breakups. You know who's maybe had, maybe on drugs. Maybe they're harming themselves. So here is a way for kids to have the power to help intervene and make a difference in another child's life, another friend's life. So I encourage you guys to take this information. We have even an app where you can download it and put it on your phone. Encourage your friends because you guys can make a difference in another person's life.
We also know, everyone on this panel knows that I've heard this phrase more often than not, you know, I'd rather lose my life than not be accepted. And that is the reality of where schools are these days. I truly, and this is a great dovetail to be able to say this at this moment, but Amy's film is probably, in all my years of being, you know, crisscrossing all over the world, probably the most powerful scenario of what goes on in schools and the cruelty that goes on in schools. And my wife and I, when we left the movie, and we had seen it a number of times, when we left the movie, my wife turned to me and said that every student in the country should see this movie because it's a mirror. It's a mirror for all of you. Whether you're on whatever side of bullying there is, it's a mirror. And because it's a mirror, you get a chance to look in depth inside yourself and reach in and ask yourself, you know, do I tolerate another suicide in my school? Do I tolerate watching people be abjectly cruel? Do I tolerate, you know, coming to school every day and walking through the doors and not feeling like I can be safe in the school environment? And I'm not talking physical safety. I'm talking, which is probably more in depth, I'm talking about emotional safety. And every day, a good percentage of every school, kids walk in and they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe. They come out of home environments that are struggling. They come out of home environments that many of them, it takes every ounce for them to get to school every day, to just be physically present. So I charge all of you, number one, to go and find out how to be able to get this movie and bring it in. But I also charge all of you to be a champion. If you're going to be a leader, don't be a leader in silence, but be a champion. And really stand up. And you know something? Phenomenal feeling at the end of that run. Thanks.
I think it's important to kind of add to what you were saying about the program, because I think that's wonderful that they have a resource. But I wanted to ask you guys, how many different schools are represented here today in Michigan? How many? At least over 100?
Over 100.
Okay, within your schools, let me ask you a question. Do you live by a code in your school? Is there a social code in your school that you all live by? You do. So you sign a contract at the beginning of your school year and you live by that code so you know there's a protocol to follow? Yes?
No.
Yep, socially, how you interact with each other, how you deal with conflict resolution, and are you a part of the solution? Or do they have principals and administrators? How many of you serve on your school board? Your school board. How many sit on your city councils? How many of you? Right, because they don't let children serve on these seats, do they? Okay, so one of the things that we're doing with the film after it's called There's a Movement that's wonderful, and I really do hope the government gets behind it. It's called the Peacekeeper Movement. And I want you to envision every day going to school. From the very first day before you even begin at that school, that you know as a community you live by the code of this school. It's a peace school. There is no more fear of stepping up and saying it's okay to speak out because you all live by the same code. There's a code word you have. If anybody, Jim and I, get into a moment in the hallway and I'm angry with him because I think that he was supposed to get something done, he didn't get it done, and I'm like, Jim, you're slacking. And I'm angry with him, I'm yelling at him, and I'm getting very aggressive with him. As a peacekeeper of the school, it is your job. It is absolutely your job to get involved. It's no longer the bystander is this walking the tightrope by themselves. As a school, we are all peacekeepers, and we live by this code. So you come up to me and you say, whoa, Amy, Jim, peace. We have to abide by this because this is a code. If not, we have to go through the whole process. Instead of getting detention, suspension, or expulsion, we live by a new code that we have to go to counseling with our peers. Counseling with our peers. We sit in a group at the beginning of school or after school made up of our peers that we vote for, and these aren't going to be the popular kids, the cheerleaders, even though I love cheerleaders, football players, even though I love football players. These aren't the stereotypical kids that get voted into office. These are the kids that you vote for, like all of you who are leaders in your school, who I would feel safe to talk to. And now it's your job to help me get through this moment. Well, I was feeling my parents are fighting, and I lost control of myself, and I have to sit down and talk about it. And so I feel like I'm losing control, and you're helping me work through that. And until you set me free, if you will, until you feel as a board that I have worked through that aggression, I keep coming. It's a completely different way of running a school, where you are the leaders. I'm going to be very honest with you about adults. Here you go. We're full of it. Look at the way we live our life. Look at the way we treat each other. Look at Caitlyn Jenner online right now. Here's a person, whatever your opinion is, this is a person who's standing up and facing the daggers, the bombs, everything coming in this woman's way. It breaks my heart. And who's attacking her? Adults. But we expect you to rise above it. We expect you to be better than us. Don't we? We're full of it. It is time for you to become our teachers. It is time to get you on the school boards. 2 seats, that's what I propose. It's what I'm going up to the highest level of government with Michelle Obama. 2 seats on every city council. 2 seats on every school board across this country. Sir, and who's sitting at those seats are you, 18 years and younger. You get voted in just like your constituents, of course, are the young people, and your parents vote you in. Your friends' parents, your relatives, because you still can't vote. We're not asking to change the voting age. But what we are asking is, how do we solve any issues in our community without bringing young people to the decision-making table? We are biased. Some of us, we've unlearned stuff that has been shoved down our throats all of our lives. I'm 46. I'm very set in my ways in certain things, but in other ways, I have completely changed. I have unlearned what was pushed down my throat. Things that I questioned and said, I really don't think that's the way I want to live my life. I don't want to believe that. That's not my belief, that's your belief. And as adults, we do it every day to you. We do it in school, we do it in church, we do it on television, we do it online. We have examples of the way we're doing it wrong every day, but again, we expect you to rise above. So just like Jim said, there is this energy. And when I walked in here and I felt you with your energy, with your cheers, and you're pumping each other up. You can move a mountain, you can change the world. It is not going to be adults. We're not doing it. It's going to be you. And you don't have to wait until after you graduate and go to school and go to college and get your degree. You can do it now. It starts today. And that is, you make the demands for change to come to the very school that you're in every day of your lives. And you can do it. And I will help you do it. I will be there. Jim will be there. We have a whole army of people that would be at your side helping you do it. All you have to do is ask. Okay? Okay.
My question is that since we're talking about bullying, my peers come to me asking me how I can help them with their bullying issue. I don't know, because I don't have all the answers. I wish I did, though. That everything's going to be okay. I can't just say that to them because it's not that easy. It's a lot harder. And I don't want to go tell a teacher in order for them to be mad at me because I care about them a lot. So I guess my question is, do you have tips for us that if our peers come to us and asking help for bullying, what do we do?
Show of hands. How many of you have had a suicide in your school? Every 4 minutes, by the way, now. There'll be almost 9 million that will attempt this year. It's becoming an epidemic. If someone comes to you and wants you to be the front person to help alleviate some of these problems, all you have to do is reference the suicide you experienced in your school and say to them, do you want this to be repeated? Because I know many of you, when there is a suicide in the school, there is like this mass kind of mourning that occurs. And everybody said, boy, I wish I had treated that person better. I wish that I had been there for them. It was tragic that they took their life. Well, suicide is real, guys. There's a finality to it. And you can't bring somebody back to say, gee, I think you're great. Or I think that, you know, I'm so sorry that I hurt you. It's real. And as long as you live in that reality, then you can take an opportunity to do something about it. And that's where, for many of you as a leader, you can turn this and mirror the people that ask you for help and say, do you want to be part of the problem or part of the solution, which is an age-old adage, but is truer today than at any time. And because suicide is rampant, and I've been there, believe me, you know, I reached the end at times. But friends interceded with me. The night I was going to take my life, a friend of mine knocked on my window at midnight and said, Jim, I love you. I know what you're thinking of doing, and I don't want you to do it. And sometimes it just takes one person to intercede. Now, I've gotten, you know, so many thousands of letters over the years. But I remember one that said to me, if someone smiles at me today, I won't take my life. And sometimes in that simplicity is all that is needed. Nobody's asking you to get a cure for cancer in this. But giving an act of kindness, which is doable in every situation can turn some of these aspects around. So you have to reach inside. And ironically enough, the people in this room that have been bullied, you have a better point of reference because you've been on the opposite side. You know the pain. You know the hurt. You know the difficulty. And for you to be even more of a champion is certainly realistic. So don't walk past it. I'm a New Yorker, and my family, ever since I grew up, said don't engage. And I leave my apartment early in the morning, and I'd see people screaming on the street. And I would be told, walk past them. If you see somebody lying in the gutter, climb over them. Well, obviously that wasn't anything that I took to heart, but that's the reality of the planet. People don't want to be involved, but they are involved. Because each person that creates a set of circumstances also creates more fear in the culture. And if that's what you want to live with, you know, that's in your camp. But damn it, if you don't want to live with it, then stand up and be counted.
Piggyback on what you guys have just said, that's all awesome. And I mean, if it's due to the serious nature, like we just talked about, then you gotta go get home to be safe and sorry. But just a tip, I guess, I would give my guy in the back that asked the question was, the only time that you lose power is if you let somebody take it from you. And that's a tip that you could give to somebody. That a bully wants the reaction. They want the tears, right? I had a 7th grader that I did the same type of presentation that I did for you guys this morning. He emailed me that afternoon and said this kid tripped him after he heard the assembly. Upstairs in front of everybody. And the guy got up, his name was John, and he looked at the bully and he shook his hand and smiled and said, "Have a great day," and just walked away. And the bully's mouth just dropped. And everybody around him just like expected him to just buckle, you know, and he just took the power away from that person. Hasn't happened since. And so you encourage them, you know, that to not let them take that, you know, don't give up that power, basically, right? As long as, you know, the same thing of being nice and being a friend, and being there for them to really support them. But I think that's a great tip to give them too.
That's great. I know we're going to move on, but I also want to address that if you see this film, you'll understand something that you might not have thought of before. And that is it sheds the light on why people may bully. And just like if a friend of yours were to get a terminal illness, chronic illness, you may do some research and walk them through the steps that they're going to go through during their process. Well, when we learn about bullies and we learn about people who identify with this behavior, abusers, and why they project their pain, we first have to understand that it is pain. I like to use the analogy when I'm working with young people about if you were to see 2 people on a street corner, one on the left and one on the right, and the one person over on the left is crying, and the one on the right is screaming like crazy, like violently screaming. And I ask kids, which one's in pain? And almost all times, unless I preempt that, they tell me the person who's crying. And I said, what's going on with the person who's yelling? And they tell me, oh, they're just pissed. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Would you believe me if I told you they're both equally in pain? This is the way this person projects pain, expresses pain. This is the way this person expresses and projects pain. How many of you know people who cry? They cry really easy. They just cry. Now, how many people do you know that yell? They never cry. Almost equally across the board. That's because we're not built all the same. And so part of that is to research a little bit and understand why a bully bullies, takes away the power, which is very important when you understand. You don't have to now demean them and become an aggressor yourself. But there's ways of dismantling the behavior simply by understanding it. And you can make a friend feel really good if you research together why people project their pain and understand that it's pain coming in your direction. It can make all the difference in the world. It's called A Girl Like Her. I think they're going to show the trailer to you, and then I can tell you about how you can see it.
Hi guys, I'm Lorenzo from Brother Ice, and my question is not as serious as like the suicides and stuff in schools, because in my school I don't see as much like really harsh bullying. Everyone kind of loves each other. We're all friends, we're all brothers, and but I know that there's still bullying there, and I'm trying to like see what are the ways I can see it on like a smaller level so that it doesn't increase to more major events. Like everyone always looks happy, everyone loves the school, but I know it's still there. There's always bullying wherever you go. So what are the ways or like tips, I guess, you could give us of seeing bullying on a smaller level before it gets larger, and like in places where everyone kind of is already seems very happy and very content?
Teasing. Teasing is one of the highest forms of bullying because it's masking, and everybody teases, and we tease each other, and then we think, well, there's no harm in this. Tremendous harm. Tremendous harm, because if you tease somebody about something they're already dealing with in their own level of pain, you magnify it for them. So every school has teasing, and everybody thinks, well, this is common. Why not just do it? But in that is very, very subtle bullying.
So I would just suggest that if you see that, you just say, dude, that wasn't cool. Oh, lighten up, you know, because of course we can't be serious, right? We can't stand up for others and then all of a sudden they're gonna pick on you. And it's all teasing, it's all in good fun. Same advice she gave you. If it's something they can change in 10 seconds, then it's helping them. If not, you're just trying to ridicule them and get a laugh. And then the same advice the 7-year-old gave my daughter. If everybody's laughing, great, but is he laughing? Not? Then we probably shouldn't do it. Be a voice.
Touched on like what to do, like how to help the person who is being bullied, but also how do you help the person who is the bully, like with their pain that they're going through, and like how they're projecting that? I know you kind of touched on that, but
I love the question. Thanks for asking that. The short form of the story is when I was 7, we moved cities, and I decided, it was a very unconscious decision. It wasn't like I sat in my room and wrote a letter to myself, I am now going to become the tough girl. But I became the tough girl. I started a new school in a new city, I had new friends, and I was angry, very angry. I didn't know it, I didn't know what I was. I just knew that if you looked at me the wrong way, especially if you were a boy, I was going to fight you. And the difference was I won every fight I had. So I only had to fight like 10 times. And I got a reputation. Don't even look at her. She will kick your ass. And it was true. I could punch, I was fast, I could move. And I didn't understand what I was doing. I got in trouble all the time. I was down in the principal's office. I picked up my desk one day in 2nd grade and threw it across the room. Threw my desk across the room because somebody wasn't going to give me the clay I wanted. I had lost control of myself. My parents didn't know what to do with me. They did not even stop to think, what? They took me to counselors. I played with the dog more than I talked to the lady. And no one knew how to reach me. I wasn't a bully per se in the way that even my film depicts, as far as I didn't hunt for people and pick on them and crucify them relentlessly, pursuing their spirit. No, I was protecting myself. That's what I told myself. I was protecting my friends from other people because I was protecting them as well. So as my friends, who are still my best friends today, from the time I was 7, like to kind of describe me. If I have to call myself a bully, they say you were the bully of bullies. But there was this underlying issue going on inside. And this is an underlying thing that's going on with a lot of people who project pain. They don't know how to cope with it. They don't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have a safe space to go to say how I was feeling, to understand it. So first you have to understand that it is pain. Once you understand that you see it as pain, it doesn't look like pain. It looks like just cruel, nasty, mean behavior with no consciousness whatsoever. Because there is no consciousness to it. Ask the bully 10 years after they bullied if they remember what they did. Ask their victims the same question. They remember it like it was yesterday. But the bully can't remember anything. It's not that they're pretending, they really can't remember it because we're so unconscious in that time, during that act, that we cannot understand what we're doing, we cannot see what we're doing. And it takes one person to not come at us aggressively. It takes one person to say, what's up? What's going on? Are you okay? Like, that was really big. Like, that was intense. I don't know, I just hate her. Oh my God, she drives me crazy. Well, let's talk about that, because obviously there's something there. It takes one person to reach out in a soft touch. To fight fire with fire, it's not gonna work. You might punch the bully out, you might not get picked on ever again by that one person, but guess what? There's another victim. There's another person to project the pain to. We wanna get deeper underneath it and ask the softer questions. What's going on with you? And of course the victim can't do that because unless they have so much power within them, they can walk right up to them and say, you don't want to hurt me. I know you don't want to hurt me. I don't know why you're doing it. I might be an easy target for you. But I could also be your friend if you ever wanted to talk. Because all I see is you hurting people. And I think you're hurting yourself. And whatever the reaction is, it doesn't matter what the reaction is. The truth is you just touched on something that nobody else tried to reach. And that is so important. Try to understand and have that kind of compassion. Because they're a human being. And they're in pain. And even though they don't seem worthy of kindness, they are. And they need you. They really need you to reach out and try to be compassionate. I hope I answered your question.
By the way, you know, and I have a huge, long history with Hobie from pretty much the beginning. What we're doing in this room today was not in the cards for most of the Hobie experience. But because it's so relevant to all of you, and because it occurs so frequently, and because these at-risk problems continue to grow and escalate, what you're doing today in terms of raising the bar of awareness is monumental. Now I'm going to give you a couple of ideas going back into your community so that this just doesn't become a philosophic exchange. I would go to your local newspaper and I would ask to write a column answering the questions from both bullies and people that have been bullied, and make it an awareness throughout the community rather than isolated in just a tiny corner, which is some school environments. So I would go ahead and do that. If you have a radio or cable television show, I would ask, and I started this in Zealand many, many years ago. They had a radio station, and I switched roles. I had parents call in, and students be the experts. Students answer the question, because you live in this arena every single day. And echoing what Amy said is, we don't know. And we're only going to know when you decide to stand up and tell us. Otherwise, it's just swept under the carpet. And so many schools are so self-protective these days that they don't want their image tarnished. So a lot of this that goes by virtually, unnoticed is only because there's this protective wall. Well, who's the one that's getting hurt? You. You, your friends, the people in your life. And damn it again, it's time to stand up and be counted. Because if you don't, we're in a lot of trouble. You guys are the hope. If you screw it up, we're all screwed. So it's time for some of you to stand up, find a vehicle to have a voice. Don't let anybody squelch your voice, because your voice counts. And I'm watching you, there's four essentially adults on this panel, and then there's Lexi, and when Lexi starts to speak, I watch the body language of some of you lean forward to hear what she's trying to say. Because peer-to-peer is the best gift. Not adult to peer, not adult to expert to peer, but peer-to-peer, which is where you come in. And I hope on Monday morning that you hit the ground running with some of this.
right? So since like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we're all told like don't be a tattletale, you know? And then you get in middle school, high school, and you don't want to be a snitch, you just get stitches, right? So then how do you change that mentality in high school? Because like even I feel like if you do tell that something happened, even if it was like with homework or something like that, you feel guilty because you feel like you got your friends or your classmates to know. So how do you change that mentality?
You're not snitching if you're helping someone. And that's just something that you just kind of got to learn. You're not snitching. If you're helping someone, you're not snitching. That's just how it goes. I mean, if you're like, if someone cheated on their homework, you go and you're like, dude, you just cheated on the homework. Like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can kind of see like where people would be like, okay, why are you snitching? But if someone's getting bullied and you tell an adult, that's not snitching, because you're completely helping into this person out. And when you're helping someone out, that person, whether they say thank you or not, it means a lot to them. And I can say that from experience. People have told other people, people have told adults what goes on in my life, and although I hate it in the moment, I'm really thankful for it in the end. So if you go around and you tell your friends that, hey, like this person's being bullied, you really need to tell someone, and they're like, we're just snitching. No, you're not snitching. You're helping this person out completely. Like they are in danger. They are in danger from bully. They are in danger with themselves. And if you go and tell, you're helping them out. You're doing them a big favor, because that's something that they don't have the guts to do. So tell your friends that, and just keep telling them that. And the more you keep telling them that, then the more it's going to get across from the rest of your class and the student body that you're not stitching.
I think just to, I mean, you can save lives. I shared the story earlier today about my friend Irene, who's 101, and just like Jim and Amy said, she remembers something that happened just like it was yesterday from 4th grade. You know, that's stuck on her heart forever. So if anything, you're helping to erase some heart marks, you know. There's a girl that spoke in her school. 6 months later, I got an email. She said, you probably didn't hear one word. You probably thought that I didn't hear one word that you said. I was in the front row wearing this flannel shirt, and her first name was Logan. And she said, I had the most painful thing happen to me. My best friend overdosed. And I had to write her out. But that ended up saving her life. My best friend held her everything in the book when she got out of the hospital. Was so mad that she did that to her because she got in trouble with the law and the whole 9 yards. But she was alive. So, I mean, if that's what it takes, a little bit of rejection or someone calling you a telltale, so be it. I mean, if it comes down to actually saving people, it's worth it.
My question is, this victim, a lot of the time, even the closest friends don't know that they're being bullied, or they do. They basically shield themselves as their own private zone, with no one knows the extent. You can tell, but they'll not really do anything about it. You have no evidence to prove it. How do you get those kids to manage all around themselves of protection, to have a couple of them try and make sure that they are safe and not let anyone get in? How do you get them to that?
So just to rephrase what you asked, you're saying sometimes your close friends are the ones that are causing the pain too? Is that, or how did you phrase it?
How do you protect the ones that nobody knows is going on? How do you protect the ones that is not obvious, there's no evidence that the bullying is going on?
We don't want to open themselves up to anyone, but they couldn't engage around themselves.
They isolate themselves.
We said it, yeah, and you know, that's a great question too, and Jim will probably talk about it later too, but there's so many times that you still reach out to the person regardless of whether you get a reaction. You know, there's times that you're going to smile at them and try to be their friend or just, you know, say, hey, how's it going? And they may just never respond to you, but they're not going to forget the action, right? And so you have to still keep trying. You know, you have the effort, not always the outcome. And so to just really go with that mentality and know that whatever you say, you know, if it's a positive nature, it's coming from the heart. Sometimes we don't know what to say, you know, you just pretend you are about to give a big speech and you drop coffee all over your note cards, so you just got to talk from the heart, right? It forces you to do that. And people feel the heart vibe, they sense that heart-to-heart connection. And if they truly know you care about them and you have something vested in them that you, excuse my Tuman language, but give a damn, then they're going to really respond eventually. And that's all you can hope for.
I would say you never stop trying to reach them. If it's you and you find yourself in that position and you don't feel there's anybody, there's always somebody. There's phone calls, there's hotlines, even if you want to talk to a stranger, there's chat rooms that you can go into and at least reach out to a human being that might be going through what you're going through. Never feel that being alone is where you're safe. There's a safe person somewhere in your life. You just have to find them. Sometimes they're at school, they're at home, or they're a friend's parent. There's always somebody to go to. And then if it's that person that you can't reach them and they just won't talk to you and they've cut you off, you never stop trying. You just reach out, it's a text message, hey, just thinking about you. Can we get together? Walk up to them, you try to connect with them.
I'm going to turn the tide on this question for all of you, because most of you are leaders in your school environment. But raise your hand in the room if you have ever said to friends, to significant people in the school, that you are hurting. Raise your hand if you've ever said to people in your school that you are hurting. Look around you. Very, very few hands are raised at this time. But I would venture to say that at some point in your school, in your time in school, that you were in tremendous pain. And what prevented you from saying that you were hurting? Because your image would be shattered. And I want to emphasize, if I do anything from this forum today, I want to emphasize to all of you, the weakness is in not sharing, not in sharing. We're all vulnerable. We are all challenged. We all live day to day with some issues that carry through our entire lives and create our pain. There is no weakness in sharing this. And if you're going to preserve your image at the expense of the pain that you are living with, I want you to remember this. That pain will only escalate. All you're doing is just sweeping it under the carpet and band-aiding. That pain will escalate. I cannot tell you how many times, I just shared with you today and opened up, my vulnerability and told you of 3 suicide attempts as a high achiever kid. And the reality for me is, when I first started saying that, I said, what am I doing? What am I doing? People are here to hear me speak, and I'm opening myself up to let them know that I'm real, that I'm vulnerable, that I live in pain. And there is no judgment issue on that. So you want to start understanding everybody else? Start reaching in and start with yourself. And this is the weekend to start. Because as far as I'm concerned, after crisscrossing all over the world, these are the best weekends, the Hobie weekends, because you can be 100% authentic. And as long as you can do that here, you can carry that out into your own personal lives.
Alright, so it's just an old day in chemistry lab, we were all doing a lab, and I see this kid pick on another kid because of his weight, and this guy, kind of a lumpy neck, and he's done this before, and I've seen it before, and so to this day, in particular, I decided I'm going to say something to him, so I said, hey, you need to knock it off, this isn't cool, leave this kid alone. But this kid said, what are you going to do about it? He acted like he wanted me to fight him right in there, and so I really kind of froze up in there and didn't really know what to do, so I just kind of backed off and didn't say anything because I really didn't want to fight him. So I'm in that situation, how can I get him to just back off the kid?
Up here.
By you being real. Now, when I shared my suicide attempt, there was nobody that looked at me and laughed or pointed or put me down. By you being real, people are going to respect you more. And that is part of our culture, that we sweep it under, and then when something happens and you're expected to pick up the slack, and you're hurting so much, that's when people That's when you become overwhelmed and it becomes more paramount. So if you're willing to be open and real, I can absolutely assure you, from my experience of many, many years, that it gives people a chance to build a more intimate relationship with you, feel closer to you, and equally important, respect you more. About 2 years ago, I spoke at this high school, and a young girl kind of cloned onto me to mentor her, and she was suicidal. She was valedictorian at the school. Take a wild guess, guys, why she was suicidal, and bring it down to the lowest common denominator. Why do you think she was suicidal, any of you? Yes. That's an obvious. This is below that. Anybody? Anybody else? Why do you think she was suicidal? Yes. Still a little lofty. Break it down to the common denominator. I don't want to be here all day, but I'll take one more. Yeah. Still philosophical. Yes. She got a B in high school. She got a B in high school. She went to the teacher and she said to the teacher, she said, "This is unacceptable." And the teacher said, "I am not going to have you take a seat of somebody who needs this course to graduate." And she said, she begged the teacher to let her take the course over. If you are a perfectionist and you don't cut yourself some slack, you have a life ahead of you of tremendous challenge. Tremendous challenge. Because to be honest with you, people who are perfectionists have a picture of how the world should be. And then they try to jam the world into that picture. And it never works. So if you are driven and you are your own worst enemy, openly admit it. Share it with key people in your life who love you unconditionally. And in loving you unconditionally, it doesn't matter how badly you screw up. They're going to love you. My wife will be here tonight after I speak. And my wife loves me unconditionally. This is my first marriage. Got married 9 years ago. And I fall more in love with my wife every day. But the other day we're sitting in a restaurant, and I'm a New Yorker and I eat really fast, and my wife is staring at me. And she keeps staring at me. And finally she gets up, and she comes around, and she picks a piece of coleslaw off of my eyebrow. 99% of the women that I've had relationships in my life would have gotten up and never looked back. So the idea of finding people around that support you unconditionally, I call them best friends. Those are the people that will have the greatest influence in your life. And the more that you push, the harder you push against the grain, the more erosion you make in your life. And I want to leave you, this is my last comment on this panel, but one of the posters I designed, because I'm always writing and getting ideas for posters, but this is what the poster said. No matter who you are or what you do, there are going to be people in your life that love you. There are going to be people in your life that hate you. There are going to be people in your life that like you. There are going to be people in your life that dislike you. And the most important thing of all, and this is where the bully and the bully exchange is, it's never about you. It's never about you. It's always an onus on their interpretation and has nothing to do with you. And by the way, when you figure this out, it's going to be one of the most valuable things you'll go through life with. Because what you'll then do is you'll then become your own person. You won't depend upon, all of this adulation and all the rest of the stuff, and you'll be your own person. And as you've noticed from the panel today, the woman sitting to my left is her own person, which is a credit. And any of you that chooses to, stay in contact with her, she will impact your life.
Those days are over. Jim, you're eloquent. I want to address you personally, even though you represent so many of us in this room, and your bravery and that courage that it took for you to stand up and share that with us. Thank you for that, please. I love the spirit fingers, but I asked her in her ear when I was hugging her, right, but you ruined my punchline. Because I said to her, what? There's fingers everywhere. What's happening? And she told me they were the warm and fuzzies. I tried to give her some, but I don't think it worked. Being a perfectionist is something that I'm sure most of us in this room can identify with. It's how we are celebrated by other people. And Jim said it beautifully as far as when you figure out that, and when that voice in your head, it's not about everybody else beating you up, it becomes about you beating yourself up. That voice in your head, I would love to tell you that it changes and it shifts and then it turns into a positive. Unfortunately, the more it gets fueled, fed, the more negative it gets. So you have to reprogram it. And how you reprogram it is to do things that step outside of that comfort zone and do things that push you without any expectation at all. I've lived personally with people who put things in a box so tightly that I watch them come unglued when it doesn't work out the way that instruction list and that box. It was exactly how it was supposed to be. They missed the point of the lesson. They missed the point of the journey. And if you can see life in everything you do, whether it's a homework assignment, a big thesis, where you're going to college, a leadership program that you're doing, when you're speaking publicly to people, if you can look at it as the journey of the experience of what you've done and what you learned from it, all of a sudden that expectation starts to dwindle a little. And the outcome is not the most important piece of why you did what you did. It is the journey. What did I learn? People will love you. They're always going to love you, even when you're not perfect. That is the hardest thing for you to realize at your age. If you play this role, if you act this way, if you're successful in what you're doing, that's why people love you. That's not true. It's you that they love. It's you that they have that great energy with. They love you no matter if you're the star of the school and everything you do, and you get ace everything, and you get an A on everything. No, they'd still love you if you got D's. You need to find a way to love you. As corny as it sounds, saying something nice to yourself every day actually makes a difference of reprogramming. Putting something on your mirror about yourself, something that you normally hear negative chatter about, put the opposite on the mirror. And sometimes they're not just statements like, you are good enough, because we don't let that come in. It's something very specific. You're gonna rock that test. You're gonna ace it. It's okay no matter what happens. That's one of my favorite. It's okay no matter what happens. I'm here. I'm gonna have this experience. So just shift the perspective a little bit. It helps greatly. There's tons of stuff online to help you with a daily affirmation. Find one every day. Go get what are called those motivational cards and randomly pick one every day and live by it that day. Do something that changes the pattern of the chatter that goes on in your brain. And it will help, I promise. Okay. You're awesome.
Pictures of things that I absolutely love, like my cat, my dog, and like Toby last year that I look at, and like just a box of things that make me really happy. And if I'm really sad, I open it and I'm like, yes, like this is my life. Like these are all the positive things that I live for. Like this is why I'm alive. This is why I'm here today. Because there are so many good things in your life, and you just have to open your eyes to see it. Because trust me, there's a whole world out there that you have not seen before, and it is amazing, and it is beautiful, and you can go out there, and you can be yourself, and you are going to be so strong when you do it, because it is amazing, and you can do it, you really can. You just have to be your own cheerleader. You have to love yourself, because the minute you love yourself, you are unstoppable. You can do anything you set your mind to, and that goes for all of you. Anything you set your mind to, you can do it.
I think it kind of ties into what we were just talking about. You know, you surround yourself by people that are going to build you up and not tear you down. So from that standpoint, there's still a lot of haters out there. I mean, obviously I do hip hop, and people will say, "Well, you're white, so that's whack." So you know, just I get a lot of comments on YouTube and Instagram and everything else. So it's kind of like, well, that's their opinion. It has nothing to do with me, and that's like their issues. So a lot of times there's a block button. And I use that sometimes, and people that just want to just really throw negativity towards your dreams, you know, towards what you are so passionate about. So feel free to maybe get off of social media too, because I know that's not the easy solution, because you want to be on there and connect. But sometimes closing your accounts on certain things is the better option than having to think about everything too. Blocking it too is great, and I think there's also like reporting things if it gets that abusive. So it becomes like something with this, like okay to say, where you need to actually take a screenshot and send it to them. That's fine. Do you want to just go on?
It's right on the money. If you see something like that, take a screenshot, and we'll accept it, and then we'll try to see what we can do from our perspective. So, right on the money. Good question.
If you want to do something right away, I know that do that, submit your photo or like your screenshot. But also, if you, if like say someone like AskFM, I don't know if that's still a thing or not. But like if it's on AskFM and like or like some other thing where you just are anonymous and you see someone like post something like really negative about someone, go back and post something really positive. Like say like override it or like say something back. Like just say like, hey, like you're not like just be like, hey, you're really, really pretty, or you're awesome, and like you're really good at basketball, or say something that's like really nice and like uplifting. So they will, so that negative, the person that posted the negative thing will see that and they're like, oh wait, no one else is doing it with me. Like usually people like to attack when someone sees someone attack someone, everyone else wants to be doing the same things. Everyone wants to follow. If you be that person that's just like, hey, you're really cool, like you're awesome, we should be friends, like let's hang sending them positive messages. Like, just be honest and like let them know that they're worthy.
So I want to add something real quick. Like we at my school that we had one of those like confession pages come up where people like DM them and then they would post horrible things while I'm falling over here. But then me and a group of my friends, we like saw it and we're like, well, that's really like we just like didn't like it because we saw like the only thing that comes out of that is hurting. So we made this thing called Became Compliments, where instead of that, people were sending in compliments about people, and we were like even like some like we'd like ask the teachers, like, do you think that's okay? Do you think that's like really a compliment, or do you think it's like two-sided? So like even ask your teachers because like they're like the best ones to do. So.
Okay, so first of all, I've got OK to Say's webpage pulled up, just so you guys can see the address here. And we've got, Mary, what do you think? Would this be worth sharing with students? You guys might know this, but
We wanted to get somebody who was kind of cool.
right, so just talking a little bit about OK to Say, so we'll just show this quick video and then we'll let you go.
Hi, my name is Tom Izzo, men's basketball coach at MSU. The threat of school violence is something that affects everyone and needs to be taken seriously. Keeping others safe is a community project that begins with you. You can be a change by using OK to Say. OK to Say is a confidential way you can report anything that threatens your safety or the safety of others by paying attention to what's going on around you. You can be a life-saving difference. If you see or hear something that doesn't seem right, submit a tip to OK to Say. You can call, text, email, go online, or use the OK to Say app to let someone know what's happening in your world. Your tip is confidential, so you don't have to worry about retaliation, rejection, or being labeled a snitch. You could be the one person who helps to prevent a tragedy.
Go green!
areas that you can navigate to, but one thing I wanted to bring your attention to here was this student resource page. So you had a lot of questions about how to intervene and how to interact with people who are victims of all sorts of different inappropriate behavior, basically. So all these different tabs, if you hear someone, cyber safety, we were just talking about that issue, lots of resources for you as a student, and for your parents too, resources here as well. So that's OK to say. Anything else you want me to know this? Of course. And then we also, for your pleasure, have the trailer of A Girl Like Her, directed by Human Works. It's very important. Okay, so we'll watch this as well.
You make my life so miserable just by being here, and I'm gonna make your life miserable too. Seriously, Jessica, if you disappeared, the world would be a better place. Just go end yourself.
In whispers it's been talked about, but no one knows the specifics.
There was a girl who was constantly picking on her. There was this one girl named Avery. I mean, she doesn't seem mean, but when she's around Jessica, she just sort of, I guess she just sort of changes.
I guess people are talking about me being a mean person, thinking that I'm a bitch. And I don't know what makes them say that.
Jessica was absolutely being bullied. I can prove it. We had hidden cameras. We got it all.
I just don't know why she hates me so much. I did not tell her to do what she did. This girl did this to herself.
I made a promise that I wouldn't show anybody. Well, I'm breaking that promise right now.
Okay, and one more thing from Amy.
So as I was telling you, the film was in theaters on March 27th, and it was all over the country. And now we're going to do a school tour starting in the fall. The film is PG-13, and it's very real. The film is completely unscripted. It's a fictional film based on personal stories. I've worked with young people like you for over hundreds of stories that I've done with this. And it's shot like a documentary, but it's a narrative feature film. And we're bringing it to schools where we're going to be doing assemblies, introducing this movement, which I told you a little bit about. This is a social change movement that you can begin today. It's free. You can download it right from the website at girllikehers.com. And it's very simple to follow. It's a 7-step process to bring social change to your school. It's not in theaters right now. It's not available right now unless it's something you wanted to bring to your school. You can contact me. We have a couple of moms brought it to their community in Arizona last weekend and played it for hundreds of people, and they did a 21-panel, I think 21 people, way too much for a panel, but they have so many people that wanted to talk about it. So it is available, but it's not going to be available back to the public. It'll be everywhere in January, but we're doing an exclusive tour through schools first with the film. So I think it's very important to get together with young people and their parents one-on-one in a school environment and really be honest about what's going on and how we have to change it. How do you bring it? You see that woman right there with the camera that's going to raise her hand right now higher? That's Rachel. She's my producer, and go see her right after we're done, and she'll show you how. But this Peacekeeper Kit, go ahead and download it. It's very simple to follow. You only need 20 ambassadors to change the school, and 1 person in the school at the administrative or teaching level to bring this change to your school. And I tell you, I will personally come to your school when you implement it. It has a lot of exciting parts to it, like your school assembly could be something we could broadcast on YouTube and make you famous. We want to do a national competition of who brings social change nationally, and we want big trips. We're asking sponsors to send the whole school to Disney World. There's a lot of things we have ideas about, and we're looking for young people to help bring this movement around the globe, really, but mostly here in the United States. So who's feeling it, Hobie? Any group can do it. I feel this group is the group to do it. I told him this when I read about you guys. I said, whatever you guys have going on, if I would have had this when I was a young person, I can't even imagine the things that I could have done with how, using that energy and turn it into something positive, and you guys are doing it, and you can change the world. We're not kidding. You have the power to do it, and you are